The chilling encounter with David Kingston weighed heavily on Chris. The mysterious man had left more questions than answers, and Chris knew that his empire was now in the crosshairs of powerful forces lurking in the shadows. But as Chris sat in his office reading over Marcus's message about Kingston, he realized the threat went deeper than he had imagined. Chris stared at his phone, his jaw clenched. Whatever Marcus had uncovered about Kingston, it wasn't good. He dialed Marcus immediately, his patience wearing thin as the phone rang. "Marcus, tell me what you found," Chris demanded as soon as Marcus picked up. Marcus's voice was calm, but there was a hint of unease. "Kingston is connected to a network of financial elites. They operate under the radar, controlling assets and businesses across multiple sectors. He's not just some consultant. They're trying to manipulate the power balance in major corporations, including ours." Chris felt a cold knot forming in his chest. "How deep does this go?" "Deep," Marcus replied. "They've been eyeing you for a while, but now that you're in the spotlight with Sarah, they see an opportunity. They'll try to destabilize your position, and Kingston is just the beginning." Chris's mind raced. He had known that stepping into the public eye with Sarah would draw attention, but he hadn't expected it to come from hidden players like this. The wealth and power he had tried to shield her from were now creeping into their lives, and he couldn't let that happen. "Keep digging," Chris ordered. "I need to know everything about Kingston's network and make sure Sarah is protected." "You got it," Marcus said, hanging up. That evening, Sarah could sense the tension radiating from Chris as they sat together in his penthouse. She could tell something was wrong, something more than just the media or their engagement. She placed her hand on his arm, her touch soft but filled with concern. "Chris, what's going on?" "You've been distant since that meeting," Sarah said, her voice gentle but insistent. Chris sighed, running a hand through his hair. He knew he couldn't keep her in the dark, not anymore. "There's more going on than I told you. That man, David Kingston, he's connected to a group that's trying to manipulate businesses like mine. They're powerful, and they're interested in destabilizing my company. They see you as part of the reason why I'm vulnerable." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Me? But why?" "Because you've brought attention to us. They think if they can exploit this situation, they can gain control," Chris explained, his voice low. "I didn't want to involve you in this, but they're making it personal." Sarah sat back, trying to process the weight of what Chris had just told her. "So what do we do? How do we stop them?" "We stay strong together," Chris said, taking her hands in his. "But I need you to be careful. Kingston's people are watching us, and I don't know how far they're willing to go. I'll handle the business side, but I need to make sure you're safe." Sarah nodded, her mind racing with a mix of fear and determination. "I won't let them come between us, Chris. I'm with you no matter what." Chris pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I know, Sarah, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect you." The next day, Chris's office was a flurry of activity. Marcus had gathered a team of trusted operatives to look deeper into Kingston's network, tracing the connections that tied him to the other financial elites. But the more they uncovered, the more complex the web became. As Marcus briefed Chris, a troubling pattern emerged. Kingston's group had infiltrated multiple industries, using their wealth and influence to manipulate companies from behind the scenes. They controlled media narratives, stock prices, and even political decisions. "They've got their hands in everything," Marcus said grimly, sliding a file across Chris's desk. "We're dealing with more than just a business rival here. They can move markets if they want to." Chris scanned the documents, his eyes narrowing. He had built his empire from the ground up, but these people were playing a different game, a game of shadows where wealth wasn't just about money, but about control. And now they had set their sights on him. "Then we play back," Chris said, his voice filled with resolve. "We find out where they're weakest, and we hit them before they can hit us." Marcus nodded, but there was a tension in his eyes. "Chris, there's something else you need to know. Kingston's group. They've already started a smear campaign against Sarah. It's subtle for now, but they're trying to paint her as a gold digger, someone using you to climb the social ladder." Chris's hands tightened into fists. "They're going after Sarah? They think they can ruin her reputation?" "They're trying," Marcus confirmed. "But I've got people working on it. We can counter it, but you need to be prepared. The more they target her, the more dangerous this becomes." Chris's mind raced. He had anticipated attacks on his business, but not on Sarah. The idea that these people would stoop so low to hurt her made his blood boil. "We won't let them touch her," Chris said coldly. "I'll destroy anyone who tries." Later that evening, Chris and Sarah attended a high-profile charity event. It was meant to be a night of good publicity, a chance to show a united front and deflect some of the media attention that had been swirling around them. But as they walked into the grand ballroom, Chris couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The event was filled with the usual elite crowd, business moguls, politicians, celebrities. But Chris's eyes were scanning the room for any sign of Kingston's people. He knew they were out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. As they mingled with the guests, Sarah did her best to smile and engage in small talk, but Chris could see the unease in her eyes. She was trying to put on a brave face, but the pressure was getting to her. "You okay?" Chris asked, his voice soft as they stood off to the side, away from the crowd. Sarah nodded, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine, it's just a lot." "I know," Chris said, his voice filled with regret. "I hate that you're caught up in all this." Before Sarah could respond, a man approached them, his expression pleasant but with a calculating gleam in his eyes. Chris immediately recognized him, one of Kingston's associates, a man named Richard Hale. "Mr. Anderson, Miss Wright," Richard greeted them smoothly, shaking their hands. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person." Chris's eyes narrowed, but he kept his tone polite. "Likewise, what brings you here tonight?" Richard smiled, but there was something cold behind it. "Oh, just business as usual. You know how it is in our world, always something to keep an eye on." As the conversation continued, Chris could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. Richard was here for a reason, and it wasn't just to exchange pleasantries. "We should talk soon," Richard said casually, his gaze lingering on Chris. "There are opportunities on the horizon, and I'd hate for you to miss out." Chris's jaw tightened. "We'll see." As Richard walked away, Sarah turned to Chris, her voice trembling slightly. "Who was that?" "Trouble," Chris muttered. "And I'm going to make sure he regrets ever trying to mess with us."